Hook. A daycare worker pulled the young mother aside, her expression a mixture of professional calm and deep concern. She gestured towards the changing station, asking a question that would send a chill down any parent's spine. Has your child eaten any solid food for the past 2 days? The parents had left their 1-year-old in the care of a trusted family member, the child's own grandmother. They thought their baby was safe. But the evidence, a severe, painful rash and a report of near starvation, suggested something was terribly wrong. Story. It began, as these things often do, with a simple inconvenience. A young couple's 1-year-old was fighting a minor illness. It was nothing serious, just a small bug, but daycare had a strict policy to prevent spreading germs to the other children. It was completely understandable, but it left the parents in a bind. They needed a babysitter, and they needed one fast. With limited options and a need for someone they could trust, they turned to family. The child's grandmother agreed to help out until the little one was well enough to return to daycare. It seemed like the perfect solution. A loving grandparent, a familiar home. What could be better? The father's job even offered enough flexibility for him to stop home during his lunch break, just to check in and ease the transition. On the first day, he arrived home at noon to a quiet house. His mother reported that the baby hadn't been eating much and had only taken a few very short, restless naps. This was common for a sick child, so he didn't think too much of it. But then, a small detail caught his attention. He picked up the same food that had been set out for the child all morning, offered a spoonful, and the 1-year-old immediately began to eat, finishing almost the entire portion. It was a strange contradiction. Before leaving to go back to work, he asked his mother if she needed any help, a chance to use the restroom, a quick diaper check, but she waved him off, insisting everything was fine. That evening, when his wife returned from her job, the picture became clearer and more troubling. She found their child to be extremely fussy, exhausted, and ravenously hungry. The baby cried with a frantic energy that spoke of deep discomfort. And then she saw it. During the diaper change, she discovered a severe, angry rash that hadn't been there that morning. It was painful just to look at. The couple discussed it that night, a knot of worry tightening in their stomachs. The lack of eating, the poor sleep, and now this terrible rash. It didn't add up, but they were still in a desperate situation. With few other babysitting options, they decided to give it one more day. Perhaps it was just a bad day. Perhaps the illness was making the baby more difficult than usual. They hoped things would be better tomorrow. They weren't. The second day was a repeat of the first. The father stopped by at lunch to the same report. The baby wasn't eating or sleeping. And once again, the child ate readily for him. That evening, his wife came home to the same scene. An inconsolable baby, and a diaper rash that had somehow gotten even worse, the skin looking raw and inflamed. The child's illness, however, was clearly improving. With the daycare's approval, they decided to send their child back the next day, feeling a profound sense of relief. They just wanted their normal routine back. They wanted to feel that their child was in a safe, professional environment. The next afternoon, the wife went to pick up their child from daycare. One of the caregivers met her at the door and politely asked to speak with her for a moment. The caregiver's tone was gentle, but her eyes were serious. She explained that she had been changing the baby's diapers throughout the day and had noticed something alarming. She asked if the child had been eating any solid foods over the past couple of days. The wife, confused, said yes, of course. And here's where the vague feelings of unease solidified into cold, hard dread. The caregiver explained that the baby's soiled diapers were similar to those of a newborn who was exclusively drinking milk or formula. There was no evidence of solid food digestion at all. It meant that for 2 full days, the child had barely eaten anything substantial. Then, the caregiver brought up the diaper rash, expressing her deep concern over its severity. She had never seen a rash develop so quickly or look so painful. The drive home was silent and heavy. The daycare worker's words had been a validation of every fear they had tried to push down. It wasn't just a bad day. It wasn't just a fussy baby. It was neglect. This wasn't the first time they'd felt a flicker of concern about the grandmother's babysitting. There had been other, smaller incidents they had brushed aside. She always struggled to get the child down for long, restorative naps, often handing the baby back overtired and cranky. And then there was the issue of screen time. The couple had a firm policy about limiting it, especially avoiding negative or adult content. Yet, they knew their mother often had the television on all day, tuned to a 24-hour news channel, its noise and intense imagery filling the room as their child played on the floor. Each of these things had seemed minor on their own. Annoying, perhaps, but not dangerous. Now, viewed through the lens of the daycare's report, they formed a disturbing pattern. It painted a picture not of a malicious person, but of a caregiver who was, for whatever reason, unable to provide the basic, attentive care a 1-year-old requires. The parents knew what they had to do. The trust was broken. They could no longer, in good conscience, leave their child in the grandmother's care. The decision itself was easy. A parent's first duty is to protect their child. But the execution of that decision felt impossible. How do you tell your own mother that you don't believe she is capable of keeping her grandchild safe? How do you voice a concern so fundamental without shattering the family relationship? They felt trapped between protecting their child and detonating a bomb in the heart of their family. Verdict: a parent's primary responsibility is to ensure the safety and well-being of their child, and in this story, that responsibility was not being met. This isn't a simple disagreement over parenting styles, like different bedtimes or snack choices. This is about fundamental needs, food, hygiene, and proper supervision, being neglected to the point of causing physical harm. The evidence, from the severe diaper rash to the daycare's alarming report, is undeniable and deeply concerning. The parents are not wrong for deciding the grandmother can no longer babysit. In fact, they would be wrong to ignore these giant red flags. The more difficult question is how to communicate this painful truth. A direct, honest, but gentle conversation is the only path forward. They should focus on the undeniable facts, the doctor's diagnosis of the rash, the daycare's specific observations, rather than on accusations of intent. It's a conversation about capability, not character. But we want to know what you think. When a loved one proves they can't be trusted, is there any way to preserve the relationship while protecting your child?